In this video, we are going to learn how to solve equations with fractions. I'm going to teach the method that I prefer to use, but if you have one that works for you, you don't have to adopt this method. So the way that I like to solve equations with fractions is I figure out what is the number that I can multiply every term by to end up eliminating the fraction so that I only just have integers to deal with, regular numbers that I'm used to. So the first step is to figure out what is that number I could multiply everything by to make that happen. So that number is called the least common denominator. It's the smallest number that all the denominators are factors of. For this first problem, the only denominator listed there is 5. So the least common multiple, or the least common denominator, is going to be 5. That one was really simple. So for this next problem, we have 3 different denominators. We want to figure out what is the least common denominator or least common multiple for these 3 numbers. So what we can do is actually write out the multiples and then look for the smallest number that all 3 of these have in common. The number 12 is included in all 3 lists, therefore the least common denominator is 12. To figure out the least common denominator of 5 and 3, we can list out the multiples, and we can see the smallest number in both of these lists is going to be 15. So once we figured out what the least common denominator is, we're going to then multiply every term by that number. So when multiplying the fractions, you're going to multiply the numerators together, that's the numbers on the top, and the denominators together, which are the numbers on the bottom. If you're multiplying a whole number and a fraction, you can rewrite the whole number with a denominator of 1. Okay, so showing you how to do that. For here, this one we said we were multiplying, our least common denominator was 5. On the right side of the equation, I'm just multiplying 2 integers together, so that's fine. On the left side, I have an integer times a fraction, so instead of writing this just as 5, I can rewrite this as 5 over 1. You don't have to do this, but it'll just help you keep track of your fractions if you want. So multiplying my numerators, that's going to be 5 times 1, which is 5. Multiplying denominators, 1 times 5, which is also 5. And then just bringing down that variable g. Then because I'm using the distributive property, I have to also multiply 5 by the other inside term, which is negative 9. So 5 times negative 9 is negative 45. And then on the right side of the equation, 11 times 5 is going to be 55. For this next one, our least common denominator was 12, so I'm going to rewrite that just as 12 over 1. Then multiplying our numerators and multiplying our denominators. So 12 times 5 is 60, 1 times 4 is 4, 12 times 1 is 12, 1 times 2 is 2, and then include that k. 12 times 7 is 84, and 1 times 6 is 6. So for this last one, our least common denominator was 15. 15 times y is going to be 15y. Then for this next part, it might get a little tricky with the negatives, so remember that we're multiplying 15, which is a positive number, by negative 2/5, which is a negative number. So a positive times a negative should be a negative. So what I'm going to do just to make it a little simpler is I'm going to rewrite this as plus negative 2 divided by 5. So then that way we know that our whatever we simplify our term to, it should end up being a negative number, right? Because a negative times a positive is negative. Then 1/3 times 15, multiplying your numerators, multiplying your denominators, you should get 15 divided by 3. So the nice thing about this and the reason why we're doing this is because you'll notice that all of these fraction terms here now can be simplified and reduced to integers, which are a lot easier to work with. So I'm going to just take all of this and copy this down. You can just rewrite it. Oh, I missed the little line. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're just going to simplify and reduce and then actually solve. 5 divided by 5 is just going to simplify to 1. So I have 1g, or g. Then I'm going to add 45 to both sides using inverse operations, and I end up getting that g is equal to 100. So simplifying 60 divided by 4 is 15. 12 divided by 2 is 6, and then just bringing down that k, so it's 6k. 84 divided by 6 is 14. Then using inverse operations, now I have all of these nice integers. I end up getting that k is equal to negative 1 divided by 6, or negative 1/6. This is okay to get a fraction as an answer. That means that this is just the number that you have to plug into k to make the left side equal the right side. So simplifying, bringing down 15y, Negative 30 divided by 5 is going to be negative 6. I'm going to write just parentheses around this temporarily, so then that way I have that plus a negative 6. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Then simplifying that plus a negative 6, I could just rewrite that as minus 6. And then using inverse operations, I end up getting y is equal to 11/15.